Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It's Wednesday. We're halfway through the week. I hope you're all having a very good time of it, wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. Thanks so much for all the reaction to the last couple of shows. Lots of you sending in your questions and your opinions. We'll get to some of those at the end of this show on a wide range of topics as well. We've got Thomas Partey to talk about. I've got some new information on him and his potential future going into the summer transfer window. We'll talk about Joshua Zirkzee, another player Arsenal have linked with, who is generating plenty of headlines right now in terms of where he might go. Mikel Arteta has picked up an award, the best Premier League coach at the Globe Soccer Awards. We'll talk about that a little bit and plenty of other things to discuss as well. So let's get started, shall we? And we'll start with this man, Thomas Partey, who, look, has a year left on his contract. There's been lots of talk about Thomas Partey's future going back to last summer, basically. And, it was an open secret that last summer, if a decent bid had arrived for Thomas Partey, Arsenal would have absolutely considered it. And from an Arsenal point of view, that is exactly the same going into this summer. And it makes perfect sense from a business point of view. And to be fair, a lot of people will say from a footballing point of view as well, given Partey's injury record in the last, since he's arrived at Arsenal, but certainly in the last 12 months. And it just makes sense. He's 30 years old. He's got a year left in his contract. His injury issues, of course, it makes sense from a club point of view, if a decent offer arrives, that they would consider it for a player when they're certainly looking to bring in a new midfielder as well. So from that point of view, you can understand what the club are thinking. From Thomas Partey's point of view, however, my information is that his desire is to absolutely stay at Arsenal. He does not want to go. That doesn't necessarily mean he won't go. If a good bid arrives and Arsenal accept it and he talks to the interested party, then he might well end up going. But his desire, as far as I'm aware, is to stay in London at least until the end of his contract. Now, lots of contract talks have happened at Arsenal over the last 12, 24 months, really. We've seen Arsenal and Edu carefully go through the team and get players committed to long-term futures. Thomas Partey, there has been no contract talks with Thomas Partey, and he only has a year left on his deal. And I think that says a lot in terms of what Arsenal's long-term plans are for him. I'd be surprised if contract talks start now. Again, you never know. Football, things change. That might happen. But if it hasn't happened by now and you're entering the last 12 months of your deal, I'd be surprised if it is going to happen between now and then. Now, last summer, there was interest. Not really firm interest in Thomas Partey. Clubs in Saudi Arabia were interested. There was always talk about Juventus as well, although I never heard that myself and wasn't able to confirm that myself. But no firm offers arrived. So although Arsenal were open to selling him, nothing really arrived on the table that they thought, this is something to consider. And so he stayed. So we'll wait and see what happens with Thomas Partey this summer. There is an expectation, again, the clubs from Saudi Arabia might well get involved from Arsenal. We know that Edu has been over to Saudi Arabia for talks with the top dogs over there when it comes to football and PIF and everything. And we'll wait and see if those discussions, those talks lead to anything in terms of Thomas Partey. I'm sure his name would have come up in those discussions. I'd be absolutely stunned. Obviously, I don't know exactly what was said, but I'd be very surprised if you go over there and you try and build up relationship with Saudi football that, the potential of some sort of deal for Thomas Partey doesn't come up in those discussions. How I see it with Thomas now, I wouldn't be rushing to get rid. I think if a good offer arrives, then I think you take it. But I wouldn't be rushing. If it's very similar to last season, if a decent offer doesn't come in, and when I say decent offer, I don't even know actually what I would consider a decent offer right now for Thomas Partey. Probably 10 million, 15 million, given his age and his contract status and his injury record. I think you're pushing it if you demand anything more than that. And I know whenever I put price tags on people, the comments below just get lots of angry commenters saying, "Oh, you're undervaluing our players. You're undervaluing our players." I think it's very hard to value Thomas Partey any higher than that, given his, like I said, age, contract situation, and more importantly, his injury record. And I think if something like that comes in, 10, 15 million pounds, I think you probably accept it because Arsenal are going to sign a new midfielder this summer. There's no doubt about that. And I think this midfielder that they sign this summer will be the big sort of headline-making arrival of the summer. As myself and Team News and Tips were talking about in our show last week, was then that's the potential sort of curtain riser for Arsenal is that you bring in a player like that who's going to walk into the starting 11. If there's one position in this team right now where you think in this summer window you sign someone to go straight into that team, it's probably in that Thomas Partey position in midfield. And so, yeah, I think if you've got Jorginho there, you've got Declan Rice there, wait and see what happens with Albert Sambi Lokonga. Of course, I think it makes sense to move Thomas Partey on. But let me know your thoughts on it all right now. So that's the information. Arsenal open to a sale. Thomas Partey absolutely not overly pushing for a move. Just got married, just had a kid, or just got engaged. Sorry, not married. Literally got engaged last week to his UK-based girlfriend model. So his desire is to stay at Arsenal right now, push on next season in the Premier League and the Champions League as well. Let me know your thoughts on the situation and what you think should happen with Thomas Partey in the comments below. Okay, moving on now. I'm sure you've seen the links with Justin Bijlow, the final goalkeeper, and Arsenal over the last couple of weeks. He has been speaking about his future. There's not just Arsenal who have been linked. Liverpool have been linked with him as well. He's been speaking to Football Zone about his future. He said, would I stay at Feyenoord? You never know, do you? That's football. You just don't know. I'm ambitious. I've always said that. It's the opportunity presents itself and a good club from abroad comes. I am open to it. I've always said that. As long as I'm under contract with Feyenoord, there is never a punishment, and I will give everything as long as I play there. When he was asked specifically about the interest from Arsenal and from Liverpool, he said those are two very nice clubs. Of course, it is always nice to be mentioned at big clubs. What I'm just saying is I'm ambitious. As long as I play for Feyenoord, I'll give everything for that. I just want to focus on the Dutch team. Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about him, I have to say. I've seen the links, obviously. I don't know what he's like as a goalkeeper. Arsenal absolutely in the market for a new goalkeeper this summer. We know that, especially with what's going on with Aaron Ramsdale. I think a deal will have to be agreed for Ramsdale to go before Arsenal dip into the market for a new number two. So it might be something that rumbles on quite a bit this summer. I know Arsenal kind of need two goalkeepers, really, especially if Karl Hein goes. There is a belief that Arsenal might well still try and do something to keep Karl Hein at the end of his contract. But if he does go, you're potentially looking at two goalkeepers needed, a new number two and a new number three. So maybe a three will come in. But when you look at what Bijlow is saying here, when he says that he's ambitious and he wants to play and he's all the big clubs, I read those quotes and I think, is that a person who wants to come and sit on the bench as a number two? But then when he talks about Liverpool and Arsenal, there's no doubt you're coming in to be a number two, and you'd be mad if you're a goalkeeper and you come into one of those clubs and expect to be the number one. So that's the latest on him. As I said, I think it's all very much intertwined with what happens with Aaron Ramsdale, who was spoken about a lot over the last couple of shows. Mikel Arteta has picked up some silverware, or if you can call that silverware, kind of goldware, I suppose. It looks like a gold trophy at the Globe Soccer Awards yesterday. Big awards ceremony held, very razzmatazz it looked as well. And he was named the best coach in the Premier League for 2024. Went up and picked up his award from Cesc Fabregas. All smiles on the stage. He gave a little speech after. And he was asked, what is there to do now? What's the plans of Arsenal now after the season? And he said, win, win, win. So we've done everything else now, and now is the time to win. Kind of reiterated, I think, his speech at the end of the game against Everton on the pitch. I think he did the whole "don't be satisfied" line again, which is obviously the line he's really trying to push at the moment. But yeah, good for Arteta getting the award. I know a lot of people are looking at it and thinking, how has he got that award? He didn't win anything. Guardiola won the league. Emery got Villa into the Champions League, probably more deserving perhaps. But also, I mean, when you're at a club like Arsenal and you break the records that Arsenal did this season or last season, now, that is mightily impressive. And what Arsenal did last season was mightily impressive, even if they didn't end up with a trophy. So I'm not overly surprised that he picked up that award. And it just shows the sort of high regard that Mikel Arteta is held in. Before we move on to your questions and comments, Joshua Zirkzee again in the headlines. Wait and see what happens with his future. Lots of talk at the moment over in Italy anyway about what happens with him at Bologna. Thiago Motta's left Bologna now. He's gone to Juventus. So Juventus have been linked with trying to sign him. AC Milan as well, with Olivier Giroud leaving to go to USA, being heavily linked with a move for Joshua Zirkzee. Reports in Italy at the moment saying that Zirkzee's agent, a certain Kia Jarabchin, wants or would prefer Zirkzee to go to Arsenal because of the size of the deal that he would potentially get. Obviously, Arsenal would pay higher wages than those Italian clubs, so no massive surprise when it comes to that. Arsenal do like Zirkzee. They've been looking at him. Sam Dean, I remember, wrote the story back in January of Arsenal's interest in Joshua Zirkzee. I don't think he's at the top of the agenda for Arsenal, though, going into this summer transfer window. I think Benjamin Sesko is certainly ahead of him in the pecking order. But if Sesko decides to stay at Leipzig and sign a new contract, maybe Arsenal will sort of divert their interest back towards Joshua Zirkzee, who does have a release clause in his contract. But it seems like that release clause is only available to Bayern Munich, who were the club who sold him to Bologna in the first place. And that is only around sort of 40 million euros. So it's a very appealing release clause, but it certainly sounds like Bayern are the only club that can actually activate that. And the rest of the clubs, if you are interested in Zirkzee, will have to negotiate with Bologna. And given the fact that Bologna have now qualified for the Champions League for next season, that probably strengthens their hand when it comes to negotiating. They don't quite need the money as much as maybe they would have done before. Talented player, no doubt about it. Lots of people like him. I see you guys in the comments. A lot of you keep mentioning him, thinking he'd be a good addition for Arsenal. Certainly fits, again, a lot of the profiles that they tend to want to tick when it comes to signing a new player. So one to keep an eye on, perhaps. But as I said, I think that Benjamin Sesko is certainly ahead of him in the pecking order at the moment when it comes to potential forward targets at Arsenal. Right, moving on to some questions and comments right now. Oh, actually, before I do this, I should say that I'm sitting down with James Benge very, very soon. By the time you're watching this, if you're one of the first people to watch it, you've probably got about an hour to submit any questions you would like myself and James to answer in Inside Arsenal Extra Time. Recording it at about 12 o'clock UK time today on Wednesday. So that shows, but most of you watching this now, that time will have already passed. So there's no point getting your questions in. But if you're one of the first people to watch the show, then, and you want us to talk about something or answer a question, then get down into the comments below and we shall do that. Right, moving on to then, let's have a look. We've got some questions and comments here about Aaron Ramsdale and the reaction to what we've been discussing the last couple of days and about his potential transfer fee should he go, and the fact that Newcastle don't appear to be very willing to hit the £30 million number that Arsenal are looking at for Aaron Ramsdale this summer. Tossin here says, in my opinion, if the right amount doesn't come in for Aaron, then we should absolutely keep him. We can be keen on selling him, but we must not be desperate. And the player needs to absolutely know that we don't intend to lose money, especially for a strong talent like him. It'd be absolutely unjustifiable and a slap to this great club, I think, if we sell Ramsdale for cheap. Then we can never stamp our foot to make any money off a serious sale for any of our players. Teams will be looking to take the piss. Aaron says, isn't getting the right price for Ramsdale a case of holding firm on the price? Of course, other teams will lowball us, but at the end of the day, they surely wouldn't spend 20 to 30 million on a lesser keeper when they could have Ramsdale for the same price. It's a really good point there from Aaron. Yeah, just because the club initially says we're not going to pay that, maybe you do have to stand firm and sort of play a bit of a waiting game, try and call their bluff. Because as you say, if they're going to go somewhere else, and you look at some of the prices that are being paid for other goalkeepers who are definitely not of the same quality and experience now of Aaron Ramsdale, you're going to have to pay 20 and 30 million them. So you might try and lowball Arsenal because of the situation Arsenal are in Ramsdale. But when it comes down to it, if you've got a choice about paying 25 million, I would say for a James Trafford from Burnley. Is it James? I think it's James Trafford, isn't it? From Burnley. If you're going to pay 25 million for him or 25 million for Aaron Ramsdale, who would you prefer to sign? I think it's a given, isn't it? There'd be Aaron Ramsdale. So maybe you do just have to play the waiting game and try and call these clubs bluff. And as Tossim at the top there says, I agree. I think there comes a point of Arsenal where you can't just keep taking low money for players. Who's it? Is it Sepp Vandenberg, the Liverpool defender? James Pearce at Athletic, I saw do a tweet the other day about interest in Sepp Vandenberg, and he was saying that Liverpool want 20 million for Vandenberg. And I saw that and I looked at it and I thought, from a similar position of Arsenal in a player like that, they'd probably be getting about 5 to 10 million for him. It just seems that because of the history they've got, and clubs seem to know that they can just get players out of Arsenal on the cheap, that it just keeps happening. At some point, you've got to stop that, especially when you're talking about a player of the quality and experience of Aaron Ramsdale. I mean, this is England's number 2 goalkeeper. Yes, just because he's not number 1 at Arsenal anymore does not mean that value should depreciate that much. So, yeah, I agree. 50, as I've said before, 50 million would be laughable for a goalkeeper like Aaron Ramsdale. And I'm in the same boat as a lot of you. If that is seriously what other clubs are offering, then sod it. You don't go and buy another goalkeeper. You just keep Aaron Ramsdale. He's got a long-term contract. You just keep him for the second half of the season, for another season, because what would be the point? Here's one from Octavius. It looks like, says, following from Dubai, Thank you very much. You say the fact that it is no longer easy to find players that can improve our starting 11, being realistically attainable, is a clear testimony on how far we have progressed as a team. How do you upgrade from Thomas Partey and Jesus? It will only be a matter of injury record and not ability. We've made huge strides. Yes, very much agree with that. And that is where Arsenal are. And that's the great thing about the squad that they have now built is it is hard to get better than them. Certainly when you're looking at the starting 11 right now, that's what I was talking about. You look at, I think Thomas Partey, because of his age and like you say, their injury record, that is the one area of the pitch you look at right now and think, how do you immediately improve this Arsenal team, really take it to another level? And I think definitely in central midfield, potentially up front, potentially as much as I love Kai Havertz, and I think he's done amazingly, maybe you can go out and get someone who's going to guarantee you more goals than Kai Havertz does. But even so, I wouldn't be rushing out to get an absolute. I think Arsenal are in a position now where they can go in and sign more of a project type number 9, like I'm not talking about an 18-year-old kid. I'm talking about, someone who can come in and make the difference and be much improve the squad. Sesko, for example, someone like that. But still, you kind of consider them a bit of a project type signing and potential type signing. But midfield, that's the one area where you can really walk in and just bang, improve it and really take the team to another level, I think. But you're right, absolutely, Octavius. The work Arsenal have done in improving the squad has made it, it's just chalk and cheese to what it was not long ago at all. Here's one from Ayu who says, I don't know why people are forgetting Martinelli. Surely he comes back stronger and hungry. Just waiting for a new season. Gab beast to unleash. Also in the last game, he looked threatening as Saka played with support of Odegaard near side of him. Yeah, I thought Martinelli was really good in that last game against Everton. And I absolutely agree with this 100%. I think people are so quick now to write players off because of a, slightly average season. And Martinelli definitely struggled to hit the heights he hit the previous season, but I think the injuries that he got really sort of limited him. He got one early on in the season. We got a couple early on in the season, and that he really, really struggled, I think, to find his rhythm again and come back from that. And then his confidence took a dip. It will not take much at all for Martinelli to suddenly start firing again. And if anyone's ready to write him off after that season, then I think that's just ridiculous, and it's kind of classic modern day football for a lot of people. He's a top quality player, Martinelli, and I'm convinced next season we will see a Martinelli much like the one we saw 2 seasons ago rather than the one we saw last season. He just needs to be fit, have a proper pre-season, a good summer, and he'll be ready to hit the ground running when the new season starts. I'm absolutely convinced of that. All right, finally now, here's one from Aaron at the top, and also Abu, who's talking about Nwaneri. Aaron says, hello, Charles. Regarding Nwaneri's playing time next season, I think selling ESR and loaning out Vieira in the summer could be a good idea. ESR isn't trusted enough by Mikel and could command a decent fee. Vieira doesn't have the market after hardly playing for 2 seasons. A good loan could rise his value. As replacements, we surely need one starting quality number 8 who Arteta really trusts and could give the other spot to Nwaneri to have the kind of minutes ESR and Vieira are having and giving him the pathway he needs. Do you think it's enough cover, or should at least one of ESR and Vieira be kept? I think you probably keep one of them. I would think it's a big risk to get rid of both of those two. And like you, I think ESR, the market's there. I think the situation that ESR is in, I think is more likely that he goes. Vieira, I'm still not totally ready to write off Vieira at the moment. There's definitely a good quality player there. We've seen it in flashes. It's just about consistency, I think, for him and confidence. I'm not sure. I think ideally it'd be good to loan him out so he could have a season playing regular football and then come back again after that. But my only concern of that is if Smith Rowe does go, you're drastically weakening the squad of 2 players who can play in the same sort of position. And that's a bit of a worry. I get, and I've said, I think Nwaneri does need a pathway. And if one of those 2 goes, you can start moving Nwaneri in to take some of the minutes that they've had. But I'm not sure about both, I have to say. And Abu at the bottom says, no matter what we do in this transfer window, we need to keep a pathway for Nwaneri to help him and more of the youngsters coming through to know there is a pathway to the first team, which is important. And it is right, definitely, 100%. Nwaneri, I think, is at that age now and almost at the profile now where he needs to start playing. That's why Arsenal gave him this contract. That's why he signed a new contract, was to start getting towards the first team. And it needs to happen this season. He's not going to play 30 games or anything. But if you look at the amount of games that Smith Rowe played and the amount of minutes that Smith Rowe played or the amount of minutes that Vieira played, that's, I think, what Nwaneri needs this season just to continue, keep progressing and take another step forward towards becoming maybe more of a regular in the squad. All right, that's it from me, everyone. Thank you very much for watching and for listening. Appreciate it as always. I'll be back again tomorrow to do it all over again, and keep your eyes peeled for Inside Arsenal Extra Time a little bit later on with myself and James Benge. Until then, everyone, have a very good day. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.